It doesn't happen like that. At least not for me. I hadn't figured that out.
That's part of that, what I said, like willing yourself, right? Like you have to go out and do it.
Once it's like, okay, that probably won't happen again. But then boom, the second one happens. Okay, it's time to sit down.
Is that sometimes the team wants to build processes. You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Aline, the co-author of the books Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and The Best Known Roofer. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the leading digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Today, we're with one of Texas's best, right? Stuart Hastings. How you doing today, man?
I'm good. How are you doing? So, glad to be on, Jim. Yeah. This is an honor.
Yeah, this is fun, man. You've been in the business for a long time. You consider yourself
right.
Old school, right?
Right. Very much so. Yes.
But I love that, and we'll get to it later. But I love that through the years things have changed, and there's always ups and downs. And you've built a successful company, and you still have the way I thought of it after our last conversation was you have this renewed why in you, right? Like this
right.
why keeps renewing. And I think that is just a real powerful thing it's an entrepreneur thing, right? It's a business, it's
right.
someone that has that business owner built into them, right? Like we can't get away from that. But just for the audience, how'd you get into roofing? What's been your journey?
Well, I've had a good journey. I mean, it's been a lot of ups and downs, but I've had a really, really, really good journey. I've always been involved with construction from high school. Even through college, I was framing houses, working on a framing crew. I was a brick laborer. I mean, you name it. I was always around it, and it always intrigued me. I was never a really good student. I've got dyslexia and ADD, and I could not get into the school. I did end up getting a degree in drafting, which kind of slid right into where I'm at right now because I know how to read prints and things like that. But, I knew I was always destined for construction. I just felt it. The first time I ever walked on a job site, I was like, this is where I need to be. This is me. And that kind of started it. I sputtered along for, in my 20s, I was bounced around. I tried to, I had two businesses that I started, and neither one of them did well. And it was just real clunky, didn't have the business mind yet, didn't know exactly what I wanted to be in construction. And I ended up by chance, in my early 30s, I went to work for a company called Williams Insulation. They're actually called Masco now, I believe. And at the time, they were the largest insulation company in the United States. They were huge. And I was 32 years old, and I became a GM of this really small branch in Beaumont, Texas. And that's where it kind of started taking off. I got schooled on how a business is really run. I mean, you're talking a huge corporation, systems, processes, being able to read a P&L, everything that we don't know when we're trying to start something. I learned from some really good guys, the art of repetition. Back then there wasn't any social media, so there was no advertising involved, but it was a really good experience. And I was there for about 4 years, and I took that branch it started out at 75,000 we were doing a month. I brought it up to about 400,000 a month. in 4 years and kind of saw the handwriting on the wall. I wasn't going to make any more money. The only way I could make more money in that company was to move to a bigger market, and I didn't want to move. I didn't want to leave Beaumont, Southeast Texas. So I had an opportunity to go to work for a friend of mine's dad that owned a construction company, and he was a big roofer, established guy, been there in the market or in business for about 40 years. And I took what I learned at Williams, that corporate structure, and started dabbling with it when I went to work for Mr. Barnett. And I was there for 2 years. I had a little rough episode. I went through a divorce, and things got kind of a little weird and sideways, and ended up actually got fired, to be honest with you. Just one of those times in our lives that, just everything goes sideways, and it's just happened to happen. And, it was a good thing. I learned from it, and immediately started Absolute, and got my life back together. And that was 20 years ago. Which it's so strange. I mean, 20 years ago. I mean, it just blows me away. And I think we had that conversation the other day when I said, back in the good old days when things were easier, and you said, "Oh, wait a minute, you need to think about that."
That's right.
Right? And I did. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and it was a lot of work. I mean, it takes a lot of dedication. I had the one really good thing that I came in with when I started was I was established with the home building community in Southeast Texas. All the builders through Williams Insulation
had built those relationships.
I had really good relationships with all the builders.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of an untapped market in the re-roofing industry. But I've got several custom home builders that we do a lot of work for, and it's all new construction, clean work, flashing, metal, shingles, designer shingles. I mean, it's nothing to do $100,000 plus job with some of our custom builders. So I brought that to the table. So that was my starting point. And it's a huge referral base along with it, right? So I immediately was doing something as soon as I put the word out. That rocked along a couple of years. Hurricane Rita blew in. That was an eye-opening experience. Never been through anything like that before. And that was crazy. But I also we had another hurricane come in 2 years later, Ike.
Yep.
So that brought me to around 2011-ish, and I kind of hit a wall. I was doing everything myself. I ran the whole company. I was production, sales. I had a couple guys selling for me, but nothing. I did the majority of everything. I sold the jobs, did all the production, all the invoicing, all the payables. I mean, you name it. I was doing everything. Eventually hired a secretary. But I kind of hit a wall, didn't know if this was exactly what I wanted to do. I started getting really frustrated because I couldn't make any progress in the company. I couldn't gain any ground because I was doing so many things, too many things, and you get bogged down in that mud and you lose focus and you get frustrated. And I was questioning, is this what I really want to do? And I had to make a decision. All right, am I going to I've got to get off the pot. I got to make something happen. And so I knuckled back down and said, this is what I want to do. I definitely don't want to go to work for anybody else.
Yep.
That was totally out of the question. So I had to make it. I had to get up off my butt and make it happen.
Yeah.
And so from 12 to 19, I was basically still in the same position I was back then. I was still doing everything. I did have I hired a full-time office manager. I had uh, a sales guy. We started the fencing division, and the guy that ran the fencing division, Greg, who's been with me for 17 years, he helped me with production. So that was kind of a little alleviating, but by 19, I was still, I was kind of back in that same position I was in 2012. I could not find a way to make it get bigger. It didn't matter. I worked 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. It was still going to be, I was stuck on 3 million. We were doing about 3 million a year. Could not push through that wall. It was just so aggravating. And I knew there was a way to do it. I just didn't know how. I was never taught. No one ever said, hey, this is how you actually run a business. And by chance, I called one of my good customers. He's one of my custom home builders. And we always chit chat. We're about the same age. And we always, he'll call me if he gets frustrated or whatever. And so I think I was coming home from the beach, and I called him, and I just started spewing. And he said, I just signed up with this consulting company that the only people they consult are you got to be either a subcontractor or a builder. And there's some other qualifications. And he said, you need to really look at it. He said, your business, and he said, I don't want to sound like I'm telling you that you're doing something wrong, but your business is not set up right.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I know. I know that for a fact. I just don't know how to do it. He said, well, they'll teach you how to do it. So I made that phone call and went through an interview process with them. I checked them out. They checked me out. And I signed up with them. And since that day, everything, my whole company's changed.
Yeah.
The way it's run, the people that I've hired, our advertising campaigns are different. It's run like a corporation. And now it's taken a lot of effort, and I'm not there yet, but the first 2 years was a major learning curve. We had to break down everything I was doing in my day, and down to the bottom, and break that up into different components that other people needed to be doing. And so I ended up hiring more sales guys. I've got more production managers. But that in itself, that took me, and that allowed me to break through that wall, that $3 million wall. A year and a half later, I was doing 5 million, and yeah, it happened quick. But it's still, I'm still, like I said, I'm still to this day, I'm still with that consulting group, and I'm still learning.
I think that's awesome. And that's what it takes sometimes. Like a couple of things that I took from that is, like, first, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you just don't, man, what the heck is going on? But even early on, when you worked for the corporate company, and you got to learn a lot of those business skills that got you to the $3 million mark, probably, right? That helped to contribute to that.
Right.
Those were lessons in itself. So I want to go back to that time. what were some of the key things back then that or looking back now that, you mentioned P&L and different things, like what were some of the things that are like, these were the basic business skills that I learned through
Right.
that, and then I got to grow and expand upon? What were some of those early
Right.
ones?
So one, I mean, the P&L, and my wife is an accountant, so that helps a bunch.
Yep.
The I learned how to watch. There's certain identifiers on your P&L that tell you things like your price is too low. You're paying too much labor, things like that, right? Your margins are not right. And the bottom line is you got to
But
tighten up the
Stuart,
gut, and then you got to raise your prices, right? So
just look in the bank account at the end of the month. It should tell you that.
no, it's not. No, no, not really. I wish it was that easy, but it's not.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
so
and
there's
then
things.
also
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
they were the repetition of doing the same thing over and over
Mm.
and refining
Consistent.
that, because really we're basically doing the same thing every day over and over and over, from our sales to our production to our collections to our advertising. And there's it's the ability to keep that repetition going, as boring as it gets, um, and refining that repetition, um, to where it's even more efficient. And that's really, I mean, I kind of knew that because I saw it with Williams and I was doing it, but I didn't know how to refine it.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned with the consulting group with small business growth partners, was that you have to drill down into each one of these little things to the very beginning and start planning and organizing and assigning and writing processes for those motions. Um, that was huge. I mean, it's just huge. But yeah, being able to take that little bit away from Williams Insulation, that got me going, and it kind of separated me from my competition. We're in not a huge market area. There's probably 5 million, not 5 million, 500,000.
Yeah.
And we cover a lot of ground. We're right on the border of Louisiana and the Gulf Coast. So we have a lot of work down at the beach. We have a lot of work. There's a lot of little towns around us. And then we go up to the lakes area, and that's, to the beach is 70 miles and to the lakes is 70 miles. So I've had to really spread out and work that whole area to garner enough business, to stay in business. I couldn't stay in one little area, just Beaumont or Nederland, and I couldn't stay with just one service. I had to expand my services. I had to take in the new construction aspect of that allowed me to do that, because I started doing a lot of pre-flashing on new construction homes. So that blossomed into, now I've got a full-blown sheet metal shop. And there's good money in that. I mean, there's really good money in the flashing world, and then also doing existing flashing, replacing existing flashing. There's an art to that as well. I mean, you can go up there and slap some flashing, pull some old stuff off, slap it back on there, put some pookie around it, and hey, you got some new flashing. Well, there's an art to it, the soldering and the waterproofing. So we've earned that respect as well in the market. That, you need some good flashing, you need to call Absolute. You got some flashing problems, you need to call Absolute. And then that led into more metal roofing. I've got a really good metal roofing crew, really good crew leader who's actually one of our supervisors. So he helps supervise all of the metal roofing and all the flashing. So So my metal over the years, my metal roofing division has flourished. I just purchased last year. I just purchased a roll forming machine and a 21-foot vario bend auto folder, and that again that those two things go back um, to the consultant work where you have your goals and and what you're going to do. It didn't happen right away, but I knew in 3 years that we needed to be more involved in the metal roofing and be more profitable. And to be more profitable, the roll forming machine is the key to it. So that was a 3-year plan before we got there. We were talking about that 3 years ago, but I just had to get to that point where it could happen with the right people. Bringing the right people in to make that happen. I don't. It's just been the last 4 years have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal to finally clear that. I think that first hurdle when you're bumping and you can't make it happen, and then you do something to make that happen. It's like a snowball effect, and it's contagious, man. It gets inside you, and it's like, man, that actually was kind of easy when I look back on it. Once we figured it out, it was easy. So now we're taking that same process and we're just keep on going with it. You keep building it and refining it and looking for good people and the right customers and advertising the right way. And I don't know, it fires me up to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go back to like just those initial builder relationships. So this is what I think. I really think that, owners can, I mean, I don't want to say will themselves, but you can will yourself to a couple $1 million in revenue.
Right.
That will is done through, a lot of that is done through the relationships that you build, right? Whether you're, just going door to doors, because of storms, right, or in areas of town that have older route, like whatever you're doing, or if you're, building insurance agent relationships, if you're building real estate agent relationships, builder relationships is what you built, right? What I guess what advice would you give your early self in building those relationships, and what relationships do you look for? Which ones provided the most opportunity for you over time?
I would get more involved with, I would have gotten more involved sooner with property management companies. One, that they're a really good source. I've got some key realtors that help us out. There's a couple of business networking groups that are really good, that I got involved with, that I probably should have got involved with earlier. What else? The insurance agents, some of the insurance agents are really good. And I would have gone after more. I think I would have gone after more of the commercial contractors as well.
How do you build these relationships, right? Like, is it, hey, just invite everyone to lunch? What have you done along the years that's become successful?
You do it on the street. You do it on the street. You go out and you go to the job site. You're driving around and you see a commercial job site going up. You stop, start asking questions. And who's in charge? I'd like to meet. I'd like to bid on some of your projects in the future. Who do I need to talk to? And it's either the guy you're talking to, or he'll point you in the right direction, or if no one's there, you get the number off the sign, you make a phone call. And I mean, to me, that's the absolute best way to do it.
That's part of that, what I said, like willing yourself, right? Like you have
Yes,
to go out and do it. You have to go out there and do
yes,
the work. I talked to a contractor one time who was starting out, and he's like, "Man, I'm running from job to job. This is what I'm doing." I'm like, "Well, what are you doing in between while you're driving from one job to the next?" Well, do you have a list of property managers you could call in that time,
right,
right? Just as you're driving
right,
along, don't text them while you're driving, but smile and dial, right?
right,
Hit a number, hit a
right.
number at the stoplight, put the next number in, and go to
Yeah,
go on to the next one, start having those conversations. Do what you do.
hmm,
Look for opportunity, or what you're talking about is looking for opportunity in the marketplace that's
right,
already exists, right? If there's a project
right.
being built, there's man, pop in, say hello.
Yeah,
What's it going to hurt,
yeah.
right? Like, it's those
Oh,
things.
it's an awesome tool. I mean, it's an awesome
Yeah,
strategy. It works. I mean, it absolutely works. Of course, you have to follow through. You have to make good on your
that's
word. And if you start bidding these projects and getting them, you have to perform. But you have to get that opportunity first, and you
right.
have to go out there and find it. And I mean, I've always been that way. That's the way I've always done it. I've always been on the road, stopping at job sites. That's how I started, and I'm true and blue to that. And that's another thing I have a hard time with the social media, because you're not engaged, physically engaged, face to face with the customer. But I understand social media.
Yeah,
You need it. We need it. We have to have it, and
yeah.
it's a great avenue as well when it's done the right way.
I mean,
But
to me,
there's just something about that personal
yeah,
face to face meeting, and
just
it
get out of the
man,
truck.
it can, yeah, yeah. And then that guy's gonna, he'll pick up the phone, or if one of his buddies calls him, hey, I'm looking for a roofing contractor. I can't get hold of my dude. And, man, this guy stopped by my job site the other day, and he's all fired up. Sounds very professional. Why don't you give him a call?
Yeah,
There's no telling what you're gonna get out of it.
there is no telling. That's
Yeah,
the amazing part, when you put yourself out there. And I would say
right.
that on social media also, because we do a lot. I do a lot of social media. There's a lot of, it's
Mhm.
just in the same context. It's when you put yourself out there, opportunities come to you. But when
Right.
you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not, if you have time in your day, or if you're spending time on the wrong things and not in the things that move the business forward, boy, you're going to struggle, right? You're going to
Yeah.
struggle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so, you talked along the way here. You hit you mentioned two walls to me, as we were as we talked in the past, and the
Mhm.
there's you felt there was this $3 million wall. Like, man,
Right.
it this got to about 3 million a year, but that's when you're doing most everything yourself, right? And
Right.
then
Right.
things have to change to get
Hmm.
to the next level. And I think you kind of put that out at like 7, maybe, or somewhere in there.
Yeah.
There's this
That's where.
stretch
Well, for
in
me,
there.
that's where
Yeah.
I've been stuck on that 7 million for 2 years.
Yep. So there's a different, like, and then it's, I always like like what I said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. And then you got to make those slight tweaks and slight adjustments. And then all of a sudden
Right.
it's kind of, it reminds me of like when if you're, working out, you hit that plateau, you hit that plateau, you hit that
Mhm.
plateau. But if you
Right.
just keep going, right, you just keep doing it,
Right.
but you have to know that what you're doing is the right thing to do, right? So in
Right.
maybe
Mhm.
in extra, you have correct form, right? You're consistent, and you have correct form, and
Right.
you're doing the right exercises. All of a sudden, boom, it's a
Yeah.
different, like there's this like explosion that gets you to the next level. What were
Right.
some of those things that helped you break the 3 million, or what were the most impactful things that helped you break that 3 million?
I hired a production manager for the shingle division. That was huge. Um, and Greg started getting more involved with me. He runs the fencing division, but he got more involved with helping me on other things. Um, we had Hurricane Laura. That helped out really good.
That helps, yeah.
Right? That was
An
that was
abundance
that
of
was
work, an abundance
that
of
was a
work
good
can
deal.
always help. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't have been able to break that wall, even with Hurricane Laura. I still wouldn't have been able to break that wall. I'd hired a production manager after Laura. I hired. It was after Laura that I hired my production manager for the roofing, like 2 months after. So all that and that work lasted for a whole year. I had Daniel, my metal guy, was getting more ingrained in the company, and I was giving him more responsibilities. He was going out looking at the metal jobs, the metal flashing jobs, the metal roofing jobs, and then he would come in with all the numbers and everything, and we'd go over them. So I wasn't spending that time in the field. Um, I hired another sales guy. Um, those were a couple of the basic things, but I think I was more organized in my office um, with my new office manager. She was taking some responsibilities off of me, um, and I was getting more time to start really working on the company. Um, so yeah, that pulled me out and got me over the top. And then some other things have happened since then until now that has gotten me to the $7 million mark.
Let's talk about those
And
first.
again, I'm going to go back to my.
Let's
You
talk
were going to
about
say
those first
something?
ones. Yeah, let's talk about those first ones, because what I heard is people. It was a
Hmm.
couple of key roles, is what I'm
Right.
sounding. Is that am I on track there?
Yeah, you're right
Yeah.
on track. Yeah.
So a couple of key roles.
Yeah.
And so production
Right.
manager, and was it office manager? That, like, those two roles.
Hmm. Yeah. Those two roles. I had my office manager, but
Yep.
I limited her to things because I'm a control freak, right? So I would always I'd give her something to do, and I'd jump in there and start doing it myself.
Yeah.
So I had to pull away from that and just let her do her thing, and if I needed to make a correction, I would do it. But I had to get away from that.
How do you give up control of things? How have kicking and screaming is a lot of times how we give as
Yeah,
business owners. The kicking and screaming is the standard. But like,
it is.
if you had an easier path, what advice would you give someone on
Well,
passing those?
I don't think there's an easier path to that point.
Yeah.
It's it. I think what it is. I think once you see a result of adding a production manager, once I saw that result and the relief of time that it gave me, and I fully understood it. Okay, that is so important. It only has to happen once, or it only had to happen once to me, where I figured out, okay, this is the deal. I'm starving for the right people. So that's what started it. It was the production manager relieving me of the ordering and checking jobs and whatnot. When I got away from that and garnered more time to apply it to the business, I understood that I have got to, I've got to let go of that urge to dive in and correct everybody and just let it happen.
Yeah.
You can do that from the outside. You can correct things from the outside. You don't have to dive in the middle of it and and get all engrossed in the
How do
day-to-day operation. You can still make all the changes you need to make.
how do you correct it from the outside? What are some tips on that?
Just habits, there'll be a bad habit that forms, and it's a repetition thing, right? So if it happens once and it happens again, that throws a red flag. Once, it's like, okay, that probably won't happen again. But then boom, the second one happens. Okay, it's time to sit down. Let's analyze why this job went to a different address, or why did you order the wrong color, or why did the crew leave a mess in the yard, whatever it may be. We need to address this particular issue because it's happened more than once, and we figure out a way to make that particular process work better.
That's what. So I always
So
talk
you have to
to
communicate. It's a communication thing.
communication rhythm, right?
Everybody has to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard something in there is it's the communication rhythm, but you also, to me, and you could give me your thoughts on that. You have to give your team the ability to communicate that to you, or
Right.
to be able to to see those things happening and not hide those things because they'll get in
Mhm.
trouble for them.
Right.
It's always that, the need for improvement. Every time we improve our businesses, the better we get, right? The better it's great
Right.
to be able to resolve these things. Um,
Right.
One thing that I've experienced in businesses over the years, though, too, is that sometimes the team wants to build processes for outliers. Does this ever happen to you where, like, it's one thing that was a big problem on one job, but it only
Right.
came up that one time, but it was such a glaring thing that they want to build process around it, which would affect other processes. I, so I guess what I'm saying is, how do you know what to refine your processes around versus, hey, you know what, that happened, but it, you know, but we can move on with that. We don't have to
Mhm.
restructure the company because this one thing happened. And I did hear you say, like, something happens more than once, but you know, what else on that?
I think that, and I don't think I've ever had that one big thing happen just on one job
Yeah.
that made me change something. But um, again, it goes back. I think it goes back to the communication thing
Yeah.
and being able to sit down we have production meetings every morning, and so everything always comes out. I mean, everything every morning and everything, it's all on the table, right?
Yeah.
So I think that my production guys and my sales guys have bought into that and take ownership in it, and they don't want to go to that meeting and talk about the same thing we talked about yesterday.
Hmm.
You know, well, it happened again today. Well, why? We talked about it yesterday. We came up with, you know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
more. There's a lot of pride and ownership in it. And
Ownership. Yeah.
they understand that they're the face of the company too, and they can't let these things continue to happen. So um, I don't, again, it's a constant.
Yeah.
It's a constant refinement. You never get to the point where, okay, this is it. We don't have to change anything anymore. We're done. We're just going to kick back and things will be on autopilot.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. At least not for me. I hadn't figured that out.
No,
I mean,
I think that
there's always something.
always something, right? I think that that's a
Yeah.
good
I
point. I
mean,
think that a lot of times as business owners, we think, man, if I could just refine my sales process, boy, everything's going to be better, right? Or if I can
right.
refine my production process, or if I can refine my, collecting AR, right? Like whatever it is, right? Like if I
Mhm.
just do this, boy, I could go to the beach and retire, right? Like
Right.
everything's just gonna be peachy, right? If I just find that one marketing channel that brings in more business than I could ever hope for, right?
Right.
If I hire that one sales rep that just goes out there and boy, they just go print me money, right?
Right.
But it's never ending. It's never
No, it
ending,
isn't.
right?
That to me, that's the excitement of it. Really, is
Yes.
that I mean I mean I love it. I love being able to, when we got over that 3 million wall, and we traveled really quick to that 7, and I've been, like I said, I've been bouncing on that 2 times, but we've been pre-planning for 3 years how to get past 7. With the roll forming, and I never used to do commercial roofing, and a year ago, that was one of my goals. You know, this is going to happen, and we dug down into it to get to the bottom. What's the first thing you need to do? And I hired a team, a gentleman that has got, I think it's over 50 years of experience in TPO and modified bitumen. He's been on the retail side, he's been on the engineering side, and he's been on the manufacturing side. And he's a little bit older than me, and he's wanting a nice, easy, not easy.
Yeah.
He's on his way out, so to speak, but he still wants to be active. And even with that, when you start something like that, those things changes. Those ideas and goals change as you go. So I hired a team of 2 people and ended up with just one, because the other one didn't work out, but the other one did. And so we're doing commercial projects now, and we're like right on the cusp. It's been a year almost to the day, and you can feel the momentum. We've done some decent sized TPO jobs. We're doing a lot of repair work. We're building that groundwork, getting in with some churches and some other big businesses and property management companies, and you can feel it. It's fixing. George and I talked about it yesterday. It's just that tidal wave is fixing to break. It's right there.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting, but it takes time. It doesn't happen like, okay, I'm going to hire this team, and tomorrow they're going to be, they're going to put $1 million on the books. It doesn't work like that.
But there's an easy button somewhere. Why can't I just find the easy button, right?
Yeah.
Can you just give me the easy button? You keep talking about time and actual work and like things that sound hard.
Right.
One of the things that I keep hearing, is
it's work. It takes a lot of work.
Yep.
And that's why there's so many failed businesses, not just in the roofing business, but people don't understand the dedication and the commitment and what it entails to actually put all that stuff together in the proper fashion and make it function right and make money. And I mean, look, we have our mistakes, and we get in trouble, but we, through everything we've set up, we're able to work through all those problems in a professional way, but still it just, it's a lot of work. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of dedication. And I mean, anybody can do it. You just have to commit yourself.
And that's what I heard in you too, is that you're talking about, you said you're setting goals and doing long-term planning, and from, investing in the roll machine and things like you're making capital investments, you're making human, investments in your HR and your team, that salary that you're probably paying, right, for that person before this thing is coming along, right? Before it's extremely profitable. So let's start with the goals. How have you learned to develop the goals, and what are you looking for? How to set those targets?
Okay, so really, what the first thing I did was we did a 10-year outlay, and it wasn't a monetary outlay. It was a 10-year vision. Where do you want to be in 10 years? What do you want to be sitting on the beach? retired, semi-retired, so where do you see your company? What do you, and no monetary figures or goals or anything, just
Yeah.
10 years from now, I want 3 of my guys owning my company and I want to be, on the beach and maybe a phone call. Hey, I need help. Okay. And then you back it down, you go to the 5 year, then you start putting, some real numbers and quantifying, some things. And then you go to 3 years and then 1 year. And then the 1 year is where you take that goal, like the commercial roofing that I did. Okay, well, how do I do that? So I need a good sales guy. I need somebody with experience. I've got the credit line. I've got the resources for the materials. That's not an issue. I need to be educated. I need somebody to lead this game. And so you drill down into that. Okay, how am I going to find that guy? Am I going to do it word of mouth? Am I going to make some advertisements? Am I going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to go steal somebody away from my competitor, which I did. But so you have to get down to that first motion that you need to perform to start the ball rolling, and it's not a hard thing to do. It's just most people don't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea that something like that existed, a process like that.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just go out and grab somebody and, hey, come on, man, make this thing work for me. Then you got to talk about the different advertising you're doing, what kind of clients you're hitting. What are we going to do in the first 3 months? We're going to buy computers. We're going to get desks in. We're going to have, you're doing down to the nitty gritty, right? I got to get business cards made. I have to have whatever. You have to have every little thing lined out where it just happened. That it makes it happen. It makes itself happen.
That makes me think of, I think that we wait to hire too long sometimes. So not just in your long-term vision, but just in your day-to-day, right? I think a lot of times we hire when we need help, right? That puts us in a different position than strategically recruiting, right? Like when you're, and so when you put that long-term vision on paper and you go, okay, this is what we're looking for. We're going in this direction, and you start working back the people and all the way down to the desk and the computer you need, right? Like, boy, that gives you it gives you a much higher potential for success in that than if you went out and started, maybe you started just bidding projects, commercial projects, or if you started, trying to get some work in, and all of a sudden you had a project in the door and you're like, oh boy, now I need someone.
Right.
When you need someone, you're usually going to get someone who is unemployed because or someone who needs a job, right? And a lot of times those people that need a job, well, they're not the best candidate for the job a lot. It's the person who doesn't.
There's a reason why they're not employed.
That's right. There's a reason. And so a lot of times, when you can, it takes some discipline to do this. How often are you going through this now, this process?
Oh, every day. Every day. It's not, it won't ever go away. There's, unless I don't want to grow anymore, unless I don't want to do more business, I don't want to increase my net income. You just can't stop. I can't. And I think most guys that are in my position, or women, I should say, anybody that's in the positions that we're in, have gotten here for a reason, and it's hard to let that go. Once you start winning and feeling that you actually have a purpose. Your company has a purpose. You're employing people. You're putting food on tables for all of these. 100 different people are eating their meals because you are providing them with a job. I mean, there's a lot to be said about that, and so I don't think we ever can stop.
Yeah.
At least refining and making it better and easier for everybody.
And that
Yeah,
leads me to something too. A thought on that is if you stop growing, right, as a business owner, you say, hey, we're good, right? This is as far as we need to go.
right,
That to me puts some pressure on your team, right? Because what if they
right,
want to grow? Right.
right.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
so if you're, what's that? If you're not growing, you're dying kind of
Yeah,
analogy. Right. So,
exactly. Yeah,
that, I don't know if that, but that to me, if you get to a comfort level and, and you have a team of people who, they have some ambition in their lives also, I'm sure that would be a challenge. What what is it that drives you now? What is it? I know you kind of mentioned like you looked around and you're like, man, I'm putting food on the table for all this. But what's this renewed why that keeps coming back to you? As you've been through the ups and the downs and the and things change and you hit the walls and what what's driving you?
um, it's it's the. I mean, I want a very successful company. I want to be able to leave in my trail a successful company that makes money, that has really good employees, does things for our community, and I want to leave an opportunity for the people that work for me to have a piece of that pie, so they can do the same thing I did and
That's
have
a
that
big thing.
opportunity to have a financially secure life. I mean, I've got a guy that's been with me 17 years, and he's one of the guys that's gonna be taking my company over, and he was fresh out of high school. He's
Yeah.
done nothing but work for me, and I mean that fires me up. I mean, to be able to give somebody else the same opportunity that I have, and with a company that's already doing it, they just have to replicate it. I mean, to me, that's the greatest thing in my business that I can offer, and would satisfy me more than anything, is to help these other people out to achieve what I have.
That that that's what I think it has to turn to, right? It has the
Yeah.
why has to turn, in my opinion, right? The why has to
Mm-hmm.
turn to people.
Yeah. It
What was
does.
your why? What was your motivation getting going? What was your motivation back when you went through the divorce, stuff was things
Uh,
were hard, and you started Absolute? What was your why then?
I wanted to be sitting right here where I am today. Seriously, I wanted to build that company. I knew I could do it. I just, everything just happened to fall in the right place, and
Yeah,
um, it, the opportunity was there. It all happened for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. You just have to you got to take that reason and turn it into good. Um, so it, I wanted to be where I am today. I don't know any other way to answer that question.
yeah.
This is
It,
what I envisioned.
it's amazing when you look back, right? That what you had mentioned, like
Mhm.
everything. There's so many things that we think are things that happen to us or they're challenges that we faced, but boy, they were just lessons that we needed to learn.
Right.
Right?
I
Uh,
know, man.
what
Hard ones too, right?
hard ones, right? Some of them are real hard
Yeah.
ones. What
Yeah.
What do you think the greatest insight is that you could share with the audience that's helped you find success with your roofing business?
Well, first and foremost, you can't quit. You can't quit because if you quit, you lose. You're going to get beat down. You're going to get dragged through the mud. It doesn't only happen to you. It happens to all of us. That was one thing I had to cross that hurdle was every time I would make a mistake or something would blow up on a job, like, oh my God, I'm a terrible roofer. I've run a terrible roofing company. When, down the road, it's happening to my competitor, the same thing. You get locked in, like if you make a mistake, you're terrible. It's not that way. We all make the mistakes. It's how you handle that mistake and what you do with it. So just always strive for better. Take care of your customers. Do what you say. Show up every day. Answer the phone, and then get into this industry and make a ton of money and have a good time. It's crazy. And I think I heard a guy say that on one of your podcasts I listened to about how this industry is such a big second chance industry. You have guys that have gone through the ringer, gone to prison, and they come out and bam, they're smoking, they're kicking butt and making a lot of money and running these huge companies that we've never got that opportunity in any other industry other than roofing. I don't know why that is.
It's amazing.
That would be my one thing. Just don't give up. Keep on pushing. Find a mentor. But yeah, that without a doubt, you just got to keep pushing forward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This has been great, Stuart. Thanks for your time. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more revenue through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com to get a copy of the book, The Best Known Roofer. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. Thanks for listening.